Good morning, dreamers. How are you today? I'm starting with hydro because I have a wee bit of a stress headache today. Um, Nothing that life won't be able to rectify. It's nothing worth stressing over. It's just one of those days, right? All the synthetic heat that's now kicked into buildings, and it kind of just dries you right out. It is the adjustment from fall into winter. But yeah, I'm going to treat myself to a coffee out and about today, which will be very, very nice. But that's why I don't have my mug. But don't worry, I've still got something. I was listening to a podcast last night as I was tidying up the house, and it was one that my cousin had mentioned because I laughingly said to him, I've worked really hard to have such a boring life. I said, now I have to work on the stuff factor in my house. And he talked about how that is a huge mental health drain, is having too much stuff around because there's never any peace. Like, stuff does not bring peace. And so he talked about how he had come across these two guys called the minimalists. And so I listened to their podcast. There's a whole bunch of podcasts on how to empty oneself of stuff and of stress and just stop trying. Like, there's a whole book series by Andy Colbert, and it is Try Softer. She does such a great job on reminding us, just get rid of the emotional clutter, but there's also the physical clutter as well. And so I'm doing really decently taking care of the emotional and spiritual me, but the physical surroundings of me, the environment, there's often stuff, just hanging around stuff, and it makes a huge difference on the mental health. So as I'm listening to this one podcast, it's one episode, the guy was talking about minimalizing your social media and how to do that well. And one of the things he was discussing was that it's a tool. It's all it is a tool. So he turned his attention to the concept of tools, and he used the analogy of a chainsaw. A chainsaw has a purpose, and it can be loaned to your neighbor to cut down a sick tree that is damaging the yard and the grass and is getting in the way of the house and the garage and whatever, and it's just wreaking havoc on the whole neighborhood because of its presence there. So the tool can be used for its intended purpose, which is to cut something large down to smaller size so it's manageable. And so he said the tool can be used in its intended way, so it's worth having. But then the tool, in the hands of the wrong person, or the hands in the right person but the wrong mindset, can be used to damage. So if there's somebody who has a mental health issue that causes them their messages not to fire properly in their head, they could use that chainsaw and take it over to that neighbor, and they could kill that neighbor and cut that neighbor up into tiny pieces, more manageable pieces. And he said, so the chainsaw can actually bring life to the neighborhood by getting rid of something that is sick and dying, or it can bring death to the neighborhood by actually hurting neighbors. And so he said that social media is the same way, and we need to think through the stuff we have, and is this bringing life, or is this causing harm, whether to the user or whether to the subject and receiver of it. So I thought it was a really great thing, and I went to bed thinking about it, and I'm like, yeah, you know what? And it's still on my mind in the morning. And so he talked about minimizing your time with it and learning which ones you need and which ones you don't, and which ones do you keep going back to. For instance, I'm on TikTok, but I don't go back there very often. I just don't, because I like having a podcast. If I'm going to have something with sound, I'd rather it be educational of some sort, right? Or news worthy, or music, right? And so TikTok's wonky, and it's a good place to lose yourself for a while, but I don't go on very often. So if I had to delete something, it would be that one. And then really don't use Twitter really well. Twitter, I stay in touch with what certain people are saying, but I can also find them on Instagram, and so I don't really, and you just sort of, you wean yourself off these things, right? Because you certainly don't need to spend an hour on every one every day, because that's going to be a long waste of time. And it doesn't minimize your stress, and it doesn't minimize your intake. And he said you will never, in 2021, actually it might have been 2020 when he was doing this, I can't remember, while back, it was one of the earlier episodes, but you will never be 100% without it. And so what it does is it feeds the fear of missing out, the FOMO concept, right? And so the thing is, if I'm doing this right now, I'm recording this video with you for Dreamers, I'm missing out on everything else that's happening in the world. Everything. So I will always be missing out of something. I cannot listen to the news, be on Instagram, and be down the hall waking my kids up and be talking to you on Dreamers at the same time. I cannot do it, right? And so we will always miss out on something. So we need to do whatever it takes, and it might be therapy, to learn how to live without fear of missing out. Just know that what I have for this day, God has prepared it ahead for me, and I'm not going to miss out on anything I don't need, or anything I need. Like everything I need, give us today our daily bread, right? And everything I need will be in front of me. So I can turn off all these other things and not really miss out. So anyway, that was the concept. They didn't spiritualize it. That's, free of charge. So it really wasn't helping me with the minimalizing of stuff, but it was helping me with the concepts of minimalizing the things that come into the brain that affect our mental health. And I would highly suggest, you can listen to the podcast, but there's a lot of books, there's a lot of everything about this, but just the concept of, God, what do you want me to release to you, right? Like spend some time dreaming about what would it be like if I didn't have to take care of all this stuff. As a renter, I love the fact that I'm not shoveling this winter. I don't need a house. I really don't, because I don't have to shovel. I don't have to mow the lawn. There's so much I don't have to do because I don't own a house. Right? And yet some people, that's really, really important, that they own a house. Okay. So you have to figure out what works for you, and then take some time dreaming about what that would look like. All right? That's enough for now. Love you. Have a great day. Bye.